focus and listen to what God has to say and then do that together. So we have to think about how church is and what you think of church is. What do you think church is to you? Richard was talking about why did you, come here? Did you come here, just woke up, it was on your checklist? Maybe you're here to see an old friend, it's okay. Or were you here to love God, love people, and make disciples? Because if you are, that's the way you're thinking of it. You're thinking of that second definition that we need to think of it. Because that's how it starts. It's all about how you think of church. I can tell you what to do the whole time, but it's all about what you think of what church is. So focus on that. And it's very important to know all the responsibilities that you have to do. And one of the responsibilities, if you're in a church, let's look at this Bible verse right here, 1 Corinthians 3:16. It says, "Don't you know that you yourselves are God's temple and that God's Spirit dwells in your midst?" So if you think of that, think of it from there, that you yourselves are God's temple. So we are God's temple. So we don't focus on this. This is just this, but we are the temple. This is just a building, but we make it a church. Okay? All of this is the building, but we are the church. And God's Spirit dwells in your midst, which means you don't just come here and just listen to something and then just do nothing about it all week. If God's Spirit dwells in your midst and you're the temple, then it's not just in this building. You can be God's temple anywhere because God's Spirit is in your midst. So think about that and just do everything he says. If we all thought about it that way, we should be reading the Bible, praying together, doing works together, going out and just doing anything we can to listen to God. Anything God says, we would do. If we all just thought about it that way all the time, the more we could. After that, we look at, we think about, that's a lot of work, because it is a lot of work. I think about that, I would say a good bit, but I don't know if I can think of that all the time, think about it that way. But I would focus on training yourself to focus on it more. It's something you have to work for. To think of it, hey, this isn't just something I just come to. Church is supposed to be an army, not an audience. Okay? We don't just come here. We're supposed to all work together to do what God asked us to do. And so we look at some of the things he asked us to do. We look at 2 Timothy 2:3. It says, "Join with me in suffering like a good soldier of Christ Jesus. No one serving as a soldier gets entangled in civilian affairs, but rather tries to please his commanding officer." When we think about it there, he says, join with me in suffering, because there will be suffering if you are a Christian. Somewhere, somehow. I don't know how, but there will be some sort of suffering, that something you won't get to do, something that will happen to you, something that you're going to have to be at an upper level. You have more responsibilities than the average person. Sometimes it's hard to remember that and to focus on that, but that's what you have. And if you are a soldier of Christ, because we are an army, we are a body and an army church. If we are soldiers, then don't get entangled in civilian affairs. When we think about that, you don't get caught up in all this stuff. Don't get caught up in the church building. Think about, hey, we need a new TV because it'll look nicer. We need to not have the sermons, offend people. If it's in the Bible, it needs to be said. Because if you focus on it offending people, or if you focus on how to make this church look prettier, then that's the wrong way. You're getting caught up and entangled. You're getting caught up in civilian affairs. It says, just please your commanding officer. Now, sometimes that does mean having a happy sermon. Something that everyone likes. That can be it. Sometimes you need to make the church look nice because that can help, the gospel. It can help further the gospel. But we focus on that too much. That becomes a problem. If you look at, making disciples, and when we talk about making disciples, we talk about, sometimes that we get a little bit overboard from making the church pretty so people will come so they can hear the word. from just making the church pretty so everyone thinks we're cool and we can look good and we're a respectable church. You know, it's all about a tricky line of making disciples. It gets trickier and trickier because different ways to do it. Making disciples can be really tricky because there are so many different kinds of people in this world. But it's okay because there's so many different kinds of reach to reach people. You know, reaching people is a way, you know, me and Mike are different people. I mean, we have different personalities. You know, we have a lot of similarities, but a lot of different things. So if I was trying to reach Mike, it's you know, we'll have to find some similarities, but it's not going to be the easiest thing in the world. You know, there's a lot of people that I'm different from right here. You know, chances are, myself, I might not like, you know, what you like to do. Does that make sense? And so when we look at it, there's so many different ways to reach a person, though. I don't have to just, you know, talk to them one-on-one. We can find something that we both like to do, and we can do that. And sometimes with different people, there's different, you know, if I don't like a person that they don't like, you know, they like to ski. I don't like skiing. I don't like the cold. I don't like mountains that are, you know, high. I don't like any of that. But there is someone at this church that loves to ski. Like, that's his whole thing. He's like, dude, skiing is my thing. You know, I'm the skier. That's me. And then he can reach that person. And they can go on a ski trip. And, you know, while they're on the little, you know the thing where they sit down? Yeah. When they're doing that, just talk about the gospel. That's one way they can do it. And the thing is, even though I don't understand why they like skiing, even though I think that's weird, he's reaching the gospel. He's doing God's work. So I'm happy that he's doing that. I'm happy that someone's getting reached right now. I'm not bashing him because I don't understand. You know, in 6 Corinthians 6:3 says this. Says, we put no stumbling block in anyone's path so that our ministry will not be discredited. When he's saying that, so if someone is reaching someone, like we just said, by the skiing, if someone's skiing, and like I said, I don't understand skiing, why would I stop them from skiing just because I don't think that's how we're supposed to do it? If, you know, if we had a ministry picking up drunks at a bar and, like, you know, having a church bus and picking them up, taking them home, that's a ministry. You know, first of all, they're getting home safe. That's great. They see that the bus is it, so they might come next Sunday. Hey, these people picked me up. That's pretty cool. And you can talk to them. Maybe. You know what I mean? I will see. But that can be a ministry. But there's other people that think, you know, that's not a good idea. I wouldn't do that. Let's not do that. Why? You know, I'm not saying that you have to do that. I'm saying that we can do that as a church, as an army. You know, the army has a bunch of different things. You know, they have people that, you know, defuse bombs, and there's people that, you know, there's different people. You know, I'm not going to get someone that defuses bombs to go, you know, paint. You know, if he can't paint, he's going to defuse the bombs. I mean, it'd be cool if he wants to try, and the painter's not going to, you know, the guy is not going to talk to the, you know, bomb diffuser and be like, dude, don't do that. That's not cool. That's crazy. But we do that here. Someone has a great ministry, and because we don't understand it, we kind of stop it or we don't support it. That's a good thing. That means that they're getting people that you can't reach. Think about that. We think about that, but like I said, you think about all the stuff that, you know, you can do, and all the stuff that you think you can do, and they're doing stuff that you can't do, and we stop it. You know, if you look back at the definition of church, you look at 2 Corinthians 6:8-10, and we look back at the definition of church. So that one says, through glory and dishonor, bad report and good report, genuine, yet regarded as impostors, known, yet regarded as unknown, dying, and yet we live on, beaten, and yet not killed, sorrowful, yet always rejoicing, poor, yet making rich, having nothing and yet possessing everything. This is Paul talking about hardships. What he's saying here is, you can have everything and yet have nothing as a Christian. Meaning, you can have no friends. You can live in a crappy house with a bad car. You can have, no one can like you. People just think, here comes Wade. He's going to talk about, God, and that can be it. But I can still have everything if I'm doing what God's telling me to do. See, I think the reason that people discredit others' ministries is because they wonder how it's going to look on them. How is this going to affect them? They think about that, and if we're talking about picking up drunks, as good as a ministry that is, someone might say, let's not do that because it will look bad on the church. Look bad on why does that matter? Looking bad on the church? If it's what God wants us to do, then it's one of the best things to do. Then it doesn't matter about if it looks bad on the church. It looks good in God's eyes. That's what matters. You see, that's what we're talking about. It says in verse 8, through glory and dishonor, bad report and good report. Through glory, glory of God, through the glory of God, if we're doing the ministry of picking up drunks, we can have glory from God, but then have dishonor from the world. These people are, picking up drunks and, the First Baptist, man. But it doesn't matter because if it's God's will, if that's what he asks us to do, then he has glory through him. It says bad report and good report. We might have a terrible report from the world, but a great report from God. In God's eyes, we're doing exactly what we want, and that's what matters. It matters what God thinks. It doesn't matter what everyone else is thinking. Because if we focus on that, then we're focusing on the first definition, on the body, on making people happy, pleasing people. If we focus on, not just what God thinks instead of what people think, then we're focusing on the second definition as a called upon company. Because we're all called upon from God. We could be dead right now, but God keeps us right here, right now. So why not listen to him? The world isn't saving us. God saved us. That's who we need to focus on. That's our commanding officer so we don't get caught up in civilian affairs. Now, when he says, I'm going to look at the Great Commission. So Matthew 28, verse 16. Or verse 18, I'm sorry. Or 19, sorry. We look at the Great Commission. If we're talking about making disciples, this is, probably one of the best verses. Everyone uses this. It says, therefore, go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and the Son and of the Holy Spirit. So when we think about that is, I'm sure a lot of you have heard that verse. That's a very, big verse. And we think of nations as, other places, Jamaica, Russia, Uzbekistan, all these nations. But nations comes from the Greek word ethne. And ethne, the Hebrew word for ethne, is goyim. And goyim means, it's a Jewish word, Hebrew. And it just means a non-Jew. So Jewish people would say, there's a goyim right there, if he's a non-Jew. That's it. And that comes from the word Gentile, goyim to Gentile. But ethne kind of means, it turned from non-Jew. So it means non-Jew, but it also means nations, because non-Jews were making nations, so they're just saying, it's a goyim nation, filled with goyims. And so then it turned to ethne, so it means there's a nation, there's an ethne right there, and then there's a non-Jew, he goes, there's an ethne. And that comes from ethnic backgrounds, ethnicity. It comes from all of that. You look at that, so now it's not just nations. When he says nations, it's all people of different backgrounds, different people than you. Make disciples of all of them. Now, and even if you can't make disciples, if we're talking about skiing, back to skiing, that person is different than me. But it says, therefore, go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. But if I can't really go skiing with them, I can do something for him. I definitely can not discredit his ministry. That's one thing. But then also maybe I can stick up for him. Maybe I can help pay for the ski trip. Maybe I can talk to the church about, hey, I'll tell you what, Rick, yeah, the skier, yeah, he's doing a great job getting everyone else in check and just doing ski trips. Yeah, I can just see it. You know, I think they're coming to church Sunday. It's a great thing. I can do this. I can just keep on just doing anything I can to make disciples of all nations. You know, obviously I think he means nations as in other places as well. But everyone uses that, and I think if we just think of everyone that are just different than you, and just however you can reach them. You know, we think of people different than me, than you and me. I think the biggest thing right now would be a homosexuality. I think a lot of people don't really want to have, you know, lunch with them or talk with any homosexuals or transgenders. That's kind of weird. I mean, look at Jesus. I mean, we look at homosexuals. They're right now in this society. They're you know, some of them are celebrated, but we look at it and they're very you know, have no honor. A lot of people, they're getting bullied and so many other things that they're dealing with. If we look at the tax collectors back in the day, it was quite similar. Nobody liked them. They just needed someone. Why can't we be that person to take them out for lunch, talk to them? That's what Jesus did. Had dinner with tax collectors, anyone. He didn't care. Why don't we talk to people like that? Anyone. Not just homosexuals or transgenders, but people that just, maybe there's a person that just nobody likes. Maybe there's someone that you know, that just has nobody else in their family. They all died. Let's have lunch with them. Talk to them. And obviously, you won't, you know, have anything in common, or you won't have that in common with them. The fact, but you will have something in common, and you can ask them to go to church, and they might say no. But if you keep on showing them God's love, why wouldn't they? I mean, if you look at a person, there's really not much. It's a great ministry, because if you think of a person that doesn't have much hope, and is just being, you know, bombarded with all this stuff, and just is not seeing much love from anyone, and sees so much hate from Christians, people saying that God hates homosexuals. You look at all that, and you come here and have, you know, breakfast with them. How much can you change their life? And that goes with anyone, just someone that you don't like. And you might say that I can't do that. That's not me. I can't do it. It's not about you. It's about Christ in you. And Christ can do that. Philippians 4:13, you can do anything with Christ. You know, and so just pray about it. Pray for patience, for that you can find something that you guys get along with, and have lunch with them. Show them God's love. Show them Christ's love that Christ showed you. And you can do it. You know, there's no other way. And something that's happened to me that's similar to this is a guy named Malachi, my friend Malachi. He committed suicide a little bit over a month ago. And, you know, we became friends in 6th grade. He moved here. He was here in like 4th or 5th grade or something like that, but I don't remember him. And then he moved back here in about the middle of 6th grade. And I started to become friends with him. We got along. He was funny. He was goofy. He was just, you know, we just liked together. We connected. We did have a lot of similarities. In 7th grade, we got closer friends. We had more classes. 8th grade, we were a little bit closer friends. We hung out after school a little bit. And then some stuff happened to him. And in 9th grade, he just started dressing all black, dyeing his hair, just has crazy outfits. He was still Malachi. He was still funny, but he was diagnosed with depression. And I stopped hanging out with him. He became an atheist, a big atheist. And I started to stop hanging out with him. You know, one thing, I started to become a Christian. He started becoming an atheist. And I didn't really swallow my pride, and whenever he said anything, we just got into arguments and debates. And also, everyone it started to become weird, and I just didn't, want everyone to think of me hanging out with that. And you look at that, and you look at it, and we just stopped hanging out. And in 10th grade, it was about the same thing. We had two debates, and about God, and if Genesis was real, and the other one was just about if God is real. And then he died like a little bit more than a month ago, and I thought about it. I was thinking about everything. Like, none of those debates mattered. I'll tell you right now, I beat him in the debate. I destroyed him in the debate, both of them. I was spitting out these facts, but that means nothing if I'm not showing him love. No one comes to Christ, with facts. Like, you know what? Yeah, those rocks it does mean that, there was a flood here. Those rocks does support that evidence. I think I'm going to be a Christian. That doesn't happen. It comes from seeing Christ in you. I did not let Malachi see Christ in me. If I just thought about it and thought, who cares what other people are thinking? Who cares what, if people think that I'm weird for hanging out with a person? Who cares about any of that? What could have happened? What could have happened if he's seeing Christ in me? I'm not going to say that, he'd still be alive or if anything would have happened, because he was diagnosed with depression, and that's a disease, and it's a medical disorder, but maybe. There's at least a chance. Anytime you tell anyone about Christ, there's a chance, right? Even if it's just 1% chance, it's still a chance. So isn't it worth to take it? Isn't it worth it? Even if all these people think that I'm crazy, isn't it worth just to talk to one person just for the chance of them having eternal salvation? Isn't it just worth? Look at it. You might think, it's not worth it. There's no way they're going to do that. If you talk to them, there's no way if you're not going to talk to them. There's a 0% chance. But if you talk, even if you say, if they could be, the biggest atheist in the world, telling millions of people how they're never going to be a Christian and it's not real and all of that. But if I told them about Christ, there's still a chance. There has to be. Statistically, there has to be a chance that they might come to Christ, that they might see Christ in me. Rather than if I never told anyone about it, it's 0%. Rather, if I was with the world and I looked at it and I was with the world and I cared what the world thinks instead of my commanding officer, what he told me to do, and talk to Malachi. You see, that's where Malachi is just one person. There's a lot of people like this right now. Homosexuals, other people dealing with depression, medical diseases, anyone, just people that, that are shy and don't have many friends. There's so many people, right, Malachi. But there's so many times that we just think, whether, we're just lazy and like, someone else will get them. Or we think, but I want to hang out with them right now. I want to hang out with my friends right now. I want to go to a party. Or people will see me hanging out with him, and I don't want people to think that I'm like that. That doesn't matter. I'll tell you one thing. No one's ever going to come to Christ if you never tell them about Christ. It never happens. You can pray, but if no one ever does it, it's not going to happen. Because God called you upon. We are called upon company to talk to people about like this. So you got to do your job, and don't worry about civilian affairs. It's just 2 Timothy 2:3. Don't worry about civilian affairs. Don't worry about all this stuff that the world's doing, and just talk and just do whatever God tells you to do to make disciples. And if I'm talking to Malachi and someone doesn't understand, if Mike doesn't have any similarities with Malachi, Mike's still going to be with me, and he's going to support me because I'm reaching someone. So I want you to be the same way. I want you to reach people that you can, and I want you to look at it and look at other situations, other ministries, and think, it's a great job. Now, sometimes there are ministries that, aren't really ministries, and you need to stop. Sometimes that, there's a little bit of a fine line, but pray about it, read the Bible, and if it's biblical, then it's right. The Bible is above your way of thinking. Always remember that. I always think of John the Baptist whenever he's everyone kind of has an idea of who John the Baptist is, right? And he's baptizing people, and he's got a lot of followers. He was a great preacher, and he's a lot of people following him. And then Jesus comes and he baptized Jesus, and then Jesus on the other side baptizing people, and people are starting to follow Jesus. And all of the rest of John the Baptist followers are like, dude, John, Jesus is stealing your people, man. He's taking everyone. What are you going to do? He's like, this is a good thing. He must become more, I must become less. I love that because when you look at that, John the Baptist was kind of like a celebrity. Can you imagine Kanye West and all the Kanye West fans just started going to someone else that you made, and now they all follow it. And then could you imagine Kanye being like, this is a good thing. I like it. Yeah. No, that's not happening. But John the Baptist knew that Jesus and the Word was more important, and the plan was more important than him, than his way of thinking. And we need to think of the same thing, that he must become more and we must become less. Our needs must become less. Our wants must become less. Our way of thinking is less than God. And that's how, some people might get a little bit upset, oh, my opinion doesn't matter. Well, compared against the, creator of the universe, it's kind of like that's how it is. It's God. So focus on, the gospel and ways to do it, and don't get caught up in stuff that it doesn't really matter. And that's all I got to say. So thank you.